Hi everyone and welcome to a new video of Decode. Today I would like to talk about a very interesting backend automation tool that we're going to use in many different videos. Basically, anytime we need to have something there's a bit more than just a front end that we can do in cables. For instance, if you need to store some secret credentials for YouTube API, for Spotify, for OpenAI, you would usually not put this into a client because anyone could steal your key. So the idea is that you would host this in the backend and then create an API so that we can connect from cables to this backend. And we want to, usually you would code, if you know how to code, it's fairly easy. You choose a programming language, could be JavaScript, could be Python, could be whatever. And you make your own API and you serve it. But now we would like to use this no-code, low-code approach so that anyone can do it without having to go deep down into coding. And fortunately, this tool here, which is called NN8, is very interesting because it's paid but also community open source, more than 40,000 stars on GitHub at the time of this video. And if you look at the interface, it really looks like something we do with cables. So if you are all used to this node-based programming approach, then it should not be totally crazy to see nodes that are connected there. So for now we use these tools, but in the future we can expect maybe cables to run locally and then redevelop this kind of nodes or connect from cables to these nodes locally. But until the time is right, I think it's really interesting to use this tool. So, and we're going to, of course, show different examples of this, but let's just try to focus on the installation. It's fairly simple. You would need Docker. And maybe you can ask, what is Docker? Docker is now the bread and butter of all, I would say, computer engineers, software engineers, because you basically want to package your application, and then it works on your machine, but when you send it to someone else, it never works because you don't have the same dependencies, the operating system is not the same, you don't have the same configuration, same path. So some smart engineers came up with this idea of containerization. So you basically package all the application in a thin layer of the files that are required and agnostic to the operating system. So then you can package your application and run it everywhere, basically on Windows, but on Mac or on Linux. So the first thing would be to go on Docker, download Docker Desktop. So you click, and when you have installed it, you should have something like this, which is now runs on your computer. So as I said, the very cool thing about this software is then you can connect and download tons of different other libraries or programs made by other developers, and don't really care about, they only work on Windows and I have a Mac, or vice versa. So now that we have this software, you can decide to run it when the Windows or your operating system starts, and basically not really care about it. So once it's there, we need to install this NN8 tool, and what they suggest is to use Docker. So the fastest way is, instead of having to type any command line, any coding, is to or try to click on many different buttons in the interface. We can simply use these two lines of codes. So how do I now run these lines of code inside my computer? Well, if you have a Mac, you have a terminal like this. If you have Windows, you also have a terminal. If you have Linux, you have a terminal as well. So when you open this terminal, depending on how you install your system, you would have something like this, the command prompt. I think it's the most the default value, I would say. And now what we're going to do is that if we install Docker, if I just type Docker, something should appear here. So it means that, okay, the program is installed on my computer, and now I can simply copy paste. It's not very difficult. Paste the two lines. So I now paste the first line and the second line. Paste it there. And that's it. They say, okay, I cannot find the image, I cannot find the program, so I'm going to automatically download it from the server for you. And I'm going to install it. So that's all we need to do basically to install this NN8 tool, as long as you have Docker installed. So I'm going to wait for it to be finished. So you let it run. And when it's over, they would say, okay, now the editor, so the tool is accessible at this URL. I can just control click to open it. And now I've set up I need to set up my own local instance here. So I can say, you know, Kirel, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, doesn't matter here. And my email, I'm gonna use some kind of a trash email. And now you arrive here, which is basically the workspace, a bit like an empty cables patch. And the first thing, so we have access to a lot of nodes here. We can, you know, add, I don't know, let's check what we can have. Let's say I can click on a button. Like if I manually click, then I want to trigger, you know, I want to read an image. I want to compress some things. I want to run some custom code, you know, call a database. Anything you can think of. There's actually like cables, like hundreds of nodes, and we can combine them into cool executions. So the point here was to, and I can save my workflow here. So let's just rename it to YouTube workflow. Okay. So now the goal would be, if you want to access any private data, you need to connect this to our credentials so that we can actually pull some real data. So we're gonna go here in credentials and add first credential. We're gonna look for the YouTube API, continue. And what we need now is to set up the client ID and client secret. So it's actually not that simple. There is a tutorial on the NN8 page. So you can go here and basically open the screenshot and do everything they tell you. But let's try to do it together, right? So the first thing is to go on the here. You need the Google Cloud Platform project. So let's try to open this in a new tab. Okay. Yeah, so I created a brand new account for you, so we follow the same steps together. Create a new project. Okay, so far so good. Yeah, I agree and continue. Fine. We're gonna call this YouTube, or we can call this, NN8. Okay, NN8, YouTube, fine. Okay, now we create this first project. You don't need to pay for this, I think. So we select the project and we arrive here. This is a bit scary because this is all the backend of the old GCP. So you have hundreds of different services and everything. And the second thing we need to do is to go to API and services here. Just make sure if you have any projects that you are on the right project here. Enable API, okay. Yeah, sorry, I have to go there. Again, you see, it's hell. You have to click here first. I think we need to find this YouTube. Enable. Okay, so now it's running, and then basically say, we want to be able to use this API. Okay. All right. Now we have to go and create this consent screen. So basically you can log in with your Google account in NN8 and then expose this as an API. We can do external, internal. It's because we are not part of the workspace. We don't pay, so we basically can only use this external thing. Let's call this NN8 YouTube. Same email, okay. Authorized domain, you need one, but I think you can put whatever. So example.com would work. Same email. I cannot copy paste this. Horrible. Decode.gl video. Okay, save and continue. all good. That's the right thing to do. Now we don't care about this. You can say save and continue. I think save and continue should work. And now we are back to the dashboard, and we have basically set up the screen, the pop-up that appears when you want to log in with your Google account. That's the OAuth pop-up. Now that we have this, we need to set up some credentials, because this is what NN8 needs to connect. So we need to go here, create credentials, OAuth client ID. It's a web application. I'm going to call it NN8. This, I think we need to set up. Let's go back quickly. Our application. Yes. And here we need to simply take the redirect URL. So basically, when you are connected by the Google account, you need to go back here to register to make sure that you calling back to NN8. So I'm just going to paste this API, this URL here, and click create. And now we have a client ID and a client secret. So I'm going to copy my client ID, put it there, copy my client secret, put it there, save, and try to sign in. Okay, and now we need, I know I had this before, you need to go back, this we don't care, sorry, again, go back here, okay, and we need to do something else, which is publish the app here. So you have to go back to the consent screen, publish the app, confirm, and now if we try again, voila, they say, oh, it doesn't verify, you don't care, you click here, continue if you understand the risk, it's you. And then you say, okay, now this I can do whatever I want on YouTube. And now we have account connected, which is pretty cool. So that's the only thing we need to do. I mean, it's already a lot, if you ask me. But now we have this forever. So if I go on YouTube here, which I never actually have been to on this account, okay. If I go on YouTube, the first thing I'm gonna look for, of course, is if it's not blocked, somehow, yeah. Find our channel, go there, subscribe, and let's go and take a playlist here and save this as our own playlist. So if I go here, playlist, maybe I'm gonna be able to save this to my library. Okay, so if I go here on my library, I have this introduction to cables. So here I have this URL of the playlist, which we're gonna need to basically scrape the video using this account. So if you have many likes, history, you can make new playlist and then try to get them directly from NN8. So let's go back to our workflow. And now let's try to add some YouTube notes. So you can press the, like cables, the tab button, YouTube. And here what we want is to get a playlist. I'm just checking this, get many playlist. It's not an item, we want to get the full playlist. So let's try. YouTube account, this is already set up. And then we just need to paste the ID, which is this part here. So I'm gonna test the step, and as you can see, I'm pulling, very simply, I'm putting this, and I'm pulling the JSON data, which tells me, okay, this is the playlist, you have the description, and then what we want is to get the videos on this playlist. So maybe it's not, we need another node to get the videos. So let's go back and see what we have else. I'm gonna go here, check again the YouTube stuff, and get many playlist items. I think that's the one we want. It's the same thing. I'm gonna put this again, just put the URL, test the step, and now we have individual videos, right? Video 1, video 2, video 3, And then what I want to get now is to play a bit with this to get only the URL and the thumbnail. So then I can make a video. And as you can see, this is the schema for one of the items we have. But if you click here on JSON, you have the full payload returned by the API. So what can we do with this? Well, the simplest way of all is just to drag and drop stuff. So let's say I want to get the title of each video. I'm going to drag this. And I also want to have the max resolution URL because I want a big image. I put it there. And I also want to get the video ID. I put it there. I can test the step. And already we have a table. So if I put this as JSON, it's not that bad, right? We have the data we need. But what I don't like about this is that it recreates the whole structure. So it's a lot of text for just a simple thing that we could streamline a bit. So how can we do better? If we go here, we also have another mode called the JSON mode. And here we have two things. Either you type fixed values or you type an expression, which is what we need. And here, any valid JavaScript expression would work. And you can pick some of these fields here and recreate a valid object that we're going to return. So let's try. I go to expression. And you see if I drag one of these, so let's say I want to drag the title and I put it there, it gives me automatically the right, basically the right syntax. So if I want to do this and put it there and call this title, this should work. Then I can do this for all the fields. So second field, we're going to call this image, right? And then I'm going to get this URL. I'm going to remove the one, get this URL, paste it here, and it's a bit weird. It goes down. Don't forget to put the comma after. And then what I want is the video ID, right? So video ID, go here, paste again, get this expression, put it there. Let's try now. Let's test this step. And it complains. So let's see what's wrong. Okay, so let's try to parse this and write this a bit better. What I have in my expression is something like this. So let's change. I think what is wrong here is that you need to really parse this as a valid text. So let's try to put first this into quotes and see if it works. If it doesn't, I have another trick up my sleeve. So these are strings, right? So okay. And voila. So what was missing is simply the quotes, because you need to, of course, enclose strings into double quotes or single quotes. But yeah, technically the real JSON is double quotes. So let's do the correct syntax. And now you see we have a much better object to return back to our cables API, I would say. It's simpler and we have everything we need. So, okay, I'm happy with this node. I'm going to go back to the canvas. I'm saving. Don't forget to save your workflow here. Save. Control S works. And now we need something else. We need to make an API, because for now when I click this button, it fetches the video, transform, and that's it. We stop here. What I want is to, get this when I call an API. So NN8 can act as a server and create APIs for us. That's the whole point. So as I mentioned before, to create some kind of backend for our cables project. Note that it's only on localhost. So you cannot, if you want this to actually be served on the web, you need two things. Either you pay the NN8 cloud service, which is basically made for this, or you need a way to host a Docker image online. There's tons of ways to do this, but it's a bit out of the scope of the video. So the deployment part, let's say that for now we keep and we work only on localhost, and our local patch or cables patch, we call this API. If you want to host this somewhere that anyone can access this, it's another video. We'll cover that later, don't worry. So now let's go back to making an API. We have a node called webhook, which basically is what we need to create some API to our NN8 project. It's just a simple node. The only thing we need to do here is say, I'm not gonna respond immediately. I want to respond using a respond to webhook node, because we want to call this node with the get method. It's fine, but we want to control what we respond to it. So let's say I'm use this respond. I'm gonna close this again, connect this here. Many ops can connect to the workflow here. Now I need this response to webhook. And now we say I want to give all incoming items, right? If I test the step and I need to trigger the previous steps, I want not only one object, but the 13 objects or the number of videos that you have. I'm going to save this again. And now the chain should be complete in a way. So if you want the workflow to be active, you need to activate it, right? So they change to what they call production API. So it's going to change a bit. And we're going to also get this API, and then we're going to use this in our cables project. So let's try now to switch to cables. Okay, now I'm in my cables environment. I'm going to create a new project, as always. We know the drill. First, we put a main loop. And now we need to make, as I said, an HTTP request. That's the whole thing. We need to be able to call from cables to this API that we just created. JSON is correct. I'm going to remove the auto request for now. And as I said before, we need to set the URL. So let's make a string here because we can easily change the URL. Just to recap, we go back here, production URL, and we're going to get. Click here, test. Now, and we try to visualize the object. So let's try to see if it works. And you see, right away, it works. You need to set this to the production URL, save the patch, deploy it, and save the project, deploy it. And now we're good, it works. If you go in the workflow, what I like about this tool is you can also, study the executions. So I know that, okay, this succeeded, and I can go actually back and inspect what happened and what. It's a bit like cables when we have the flow mode, but here, because it's something that is not real time and it's real time, but it's not updated 60 frames per second, you have basically a way to inspect the workflow like this. So we have the proof that it worked, and we made a request to here. So technically, if you want to actually be better, it's a bit silly to call back the YouTube URL if it's something a bit static. You would technically save this to a file, I would say, like a JSON file, and just load the file instead of calling the YouTube API each time you make a request, right? But this is a bit giving you some optimization tricks which are not really needed for this video. But don't make an API, basically create a cache so that you're not going to call this if you know for sure that it's not going to change very often, I would say, because in NN8 we can schedule a workflow to update every day, right? Every hour, every minute. So at least we reduce the number of calls to an API, especially if you need to pay for it, right? So now we have our videos and we are ready to create anything we want with this. And we covered that many times in previous tutorials, but I don't know. Let's try to simply get the first video. I'm gonna make a basic material. I'm gonna make a simple rectangle. So if I wanted to get the correct ratio, I would also pull this data from the YouTube URL, right? Not rectangle, just rectangle. But like we're gonna assume they are 16 by 9. So it's we make the ratio here. You can do division, divide, and you go 16 by 9, and it gives you this ratio. Width. So here we have the correct ratio, and now I just need to basically load this. So I'm gonna put the texture node, And to load the texture, I'm gonna pull some data. So remember, we go here, we use the wheel, and I'm gonna get this image URL. And notice that this is an array, but remember that the cables output is always an object, because an array is an object. So there is an op to convert this object to array. And now we can, we can still connect this here, but what we need is to pull from this array itself, right? So, and now we should have the URL. Then I can put this into a texture, and probably complain because they would say you need coarse, because YouTube doesn't want you to pull this image. So let's try to see if we can have the coarse header to full YouTube, and I think it works. So we put this coarse proxy. So it's a cross origin request to say that YouTube wants the browser to load the image, but doesn't want another API to load the images, because in a way you are stealing a YouTube bandwidth by loading from your own website. So we use Cables is kind enough to provide their own. It's a small server that is made for this, makes YouTube believe that you are from a browser, and then gives you back the URL. So if you want to apply this in production, I would suggest not to use this, of course, either to call the API directly or to cache the images, like download them, and then you serve them, or you import them in your Cables project, for instance, right? So now that I have this texture, I can simply connect to my basic material, and that's it. I have, if I change the URL here, I can, pull some videos that I like from YouTube, the thumbnails, and then it's about clicking if you want to open the video, let's say. So we can have something called interactive rectangle, or I think there's even something called I don't know, yeah, interactive rectangle should be fine. And it's a bit of the same thing. We need to connect the width. I'm gonna delete this rectangle. But now the difference is that I can interact with this rectangle. And so you can style it with CSS, but here what I want is to basically trigger, to see if actually it works, trigger counter. So if I click on the rectangle, you see that it's incrementing. So and then I can use that to open a new page, right, and launch the video, for instance. I could also use the iframe and YouTube. I think we have also a YouTube node, like a YouTube player. And instead of doing the rickroll, we can simply get the ID that we have here. So I'm gonna go back to my object to array, pull the thing, and I want the video ID. So there's two ways, right? Either we put also this and we change the path here so that, we change this part of 0, 1, 2, 3, or we go this to an array and we pull, I would say the more classic way, you go here, you take this as an array, and now we have all the values. I think it's a bit cleaner. Let's try to do the same for the images. And now that we have an array, then we can use a simple, array get. Yeah, no, get string by path, not what I want. I want to have array get string simply with the number, right? And it's the same thing here. Now I can go here and simply get the value we want. So I'm going to put the number. Then I'm going to connect to both. So I get both the thumbnail and the video ID. And then I basically pull the URL like this. So it's a bit cleaner in my opinion. Okay, and now we have our string here. We just need to get the right URL. Connect to this, and of course you can align them, right? We can make sure that they, with CSS, that they both match, or we can open this. It's just a test to show you that it works. So now, very quickly, if I make a sidebar, and I make a, just a slider, and I know how much videos I have from this, so I can get array length, and I know the max of it's the maximum videos that I have here. Let's clean this up a bit. Then I just connect this to the number, make sure my slider goes from 0 and it steps of 1, right? And if I make my slider to my sidebar to the right, and I change this, we have access to all our videos quite neatly. So that's it for this video. Here you can trigger, right? If I click, you can start this video, or you can open a new tab. Doesn't matter. As long as we get the click, we can do something with it. I hope this video was informative. The whole point was to, set the stage for NN8 and be more comfortable. We're gonna go back, of course, on this kinds of workflows and create funky ones over time. But just to get the idea of making a backend for you automatically, and go much beyond the simple, not the simple, but what we can only do with the browser. Here, you can call databases, you can automate stuff, you can read some messages, and when you start to connect all the objects, you see that cables become a central piece to orchestrate and to visualize. But there's many things, many doors that are open to us. We can talk to hardware with this. We can go on the web and surf. And the amazing thing for me is that we didn't actually wrote a single line of code, right? We didn't write a single line of code. We're just connecting nodes exactly like we do with cables, and the tool takes care of all the the underlying technology to do this, which is pretty cool. So that's it for part 1. I really hope that you like the whole setup with NN8, and that you like this small API that we've just created using our own YouTube preferences. In the second one, we'll see how we can create a bit more, something a bit more interesting visually by making a carousel of the video thumbnails that we have here. I'll see you there.